Share with people, introduce yourself and how long you've been coming to Fellowship of Faith and what led you to our church.
Well, I've been coming for about 7 years now. I moved back here to Crystal Lake following a divorce, and I went to church with my mother, and when my mother passed away, I really didn't connect with her church. And my dear friend, Karen, insisted that I come to church with her. And I said, why would I want to go to McHenry? I live, there's Lutheran churches in Crystal Lake. And she just bugged me. And finally, I agreed to go. And you guys pulled me in, sucked me in the first time I stepped in the door.
And I know the past 6-7 years getting to know you, I mean, they've been incredible. And you've blessed so many people at Fellowship of Faith. And, in my time knowing you, you have MS, for the uninitiated, multiple sclerosis, and I've only known you in that capacity. Again, I don't want to take for granted that everyone knows what this disease is. Can you share briefly, A, how long you've had it, but B, what it is that you're actually dealing with?
For me personally, it has affected my balance. I noticed numbness on the bottoms of my feet and my 3 fingers on both hands, and now both hands are totally numb. Like I can't feel them. And this one has a tremor, and anything can happen. It just depends on where it attacks. It can affect your heart, attack your lungs. I have no balance. I have to use a walker, but I went from using walls to walk to using a cane, and then using a walker, and my next step will be a wheelchair. And okay. I have a prescription for it. I just haven't done it because I'm stubborn, and I do not want to go into a wheelchair.
Yeah.
So, but I can't drive anymore. I found myself one day coming home from work, and I could not lift my foot off of the accelerator, and I prayed right out loud, God, please get me home, and I won't drive again.
And I can remember even as recently as last year, maybe 2 years ago, where you would regularly bring a taxi, call a taxi service to bring you back and forth to church. I mean, you made that happen. I can't even imagine the complexity, the expense, the hassle
Well, I got in good with the taxi drivers, and that is one thing that I found that MS has been a blessing to me, because I get a captive audience in that car. Of course, I'm going to find out if they go to church, and and there were many times like they'd tell me their troubles or whatever, and I'd say, "Well, can I pray for you?" "Well, yeah, I guess." I'm like, well, I'm going to pray for you right now, and I'm going to pray it out loud. Please don't close your eyes while we're driving.
Without denigrating the physical struggles, but what have been some of the psychological, emotional struggles of MS?
Yeah, well, honestly, I feel like Jabba the Hutt. I mean, if I could, you got to have a sense of humor, I know what I look like. I know what I used to look like.
You look fantastic, Amy.
No, you're sweet, but no, it's I can poke fun at myself, and sure, I'd rather be thin again and strong again, but that's not the way it is. And so, when I moved here, I joined a gym with Karen, and we were walking on the treadmill as kind of a warm-up thing, and I'm like, Karen, there's something wrong with me, I'm like, I couldn't even walk on the treadmill. Yeah. It was just really, really hard. And I just didn't feel right. I used to run on the treadmill for an hour, and and I couldn't walk at 2 miles an hour. It was just ridiculous. It is depressing. I have fallen all over Crystal Lake. When I was at MCC, I fell right in front of the circulation desk at the library. When I worked at Jewel, I was putting out apples, whole box of apples. And myself went on the floor, and the apples went everywhere. I mean, I fell in the front of the store. Well, just when I was walking, I went to retrieve something from a cashier, and fell down right in front of God and everybody. Fallen. Marcia and I used to mow the yard, and I was mowing the front yard and fell into the street because even the slightest deviation in terrain throws my balance off, and that it's humiliating. I mean, you gotta try to find the humor. But there's some days, it's kind of like, I hate my life. But I can honestly say I've never cried about it. I think I got all that done,
Early
with
on.
the other thing.
Now, on those lines, you shared something with me personally before we had this time, and it surprised me that what you endured with your husband was far harder than what you're enduring now with MS. And I think to any of us who understand this disease or see its degenerative effect, it kind of leaves us speechless, but would you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, my husband and I had a really wonderful marriage. I mean, we had fun together always. And when you're in love with somebody and you look at each other in the eye and you have something that's silent, there's a twinkle or something that you pass between each other. Just my husband always twinkled at me, And one day he came home and he said, "I'm not happy, I'm moving out."
Just out of the blue.
And I looked him, I'm like, "What?" And I looked him in the eyes and I gasped and I stepped back because his eyes were dead and they were cold. And he couldn't explain it. He swore up and down there was no other woman. He kept saying, "I'm going to move out." And he strung me along from like May and then we get to Thanksgiving. I'm going to move out. I'm going to move out after Christmas. Whole thing. And and I didn't tell a single soul what was going on. I kept it to myself, and our son had no idea.
And this was before MS was ever on the scene. This is the former life, so to speak.
Right, the former life. And then, I'd wake up in the morning and I'd start throwing up. I'd come home from work and I'd start throwing up, and it took a physical toll. I hated being in my house. I spent endless hours on my deck because I didn't want to be in my house. I basically hibernated when it was all going down because I was so profoundly sad. I went to my doctor and got anxiety medication because I was like, okay, I have this hand tremor.
You shake now,
my
but this
whole
is nothing, right?
body was shaking. And I mean, I was like a basket case. I couldn't sleep. I was drinking. I was chain smoking. I mean, it was bad. And the one thing that really, really got me was my son and I were sitting watching a funny movie, and I'm just sitting there. He goes, "Mom, do you know you don't smile anymore? That you don't laugh anymore?" That was really eye-opening to me.
And
because
to hear that coming from him.
it was like, whoa, okay, I got to do something about this, and so.
Now, you had said to me in relation to your husband that even despite the agony of everything you just described, the hardest, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the actual hardest thing you ever had to face was forgiving.
Let me tell you, it takes a lot to make me mad, and I was mad. First I was shocked, then I was hurt, then I got angry. And I mean, I got to the point like, well, I don't know what happened that day. My son and I were walking into the house, and my son had this heavy punching bag.
Yeah.
I walked by it and gave it a thump, and I'm like, ow. And so my son was like, Mom, you want to hit the heavy bag? I'll get my gloves. And so he got the wraps and put gloves on me, and I hit, ow. I'm like, no, this isn't going to work. And so I went to a department store and bought 2 wiffle ball bat sets with the really hard plastic bats.
Yeah.
And anytime he would make me mad, I would go out there and beat on the bag.
I bet that was a lot,
It
especially
was a
at
lot,
first.
but I didn't do it when my son was home because I didn't want him to, see me like that, because
Yeah.
it's not the, but it was a way to get rid of tension. I
Yeah.
would scream in my car going down the road. But anyway.
Interesting for the drivers by, wondering what you're singing
yeah,
to,
I
right?
was screaming. But the heavy bat, so what's funny about that is I bent both of them. And that plastic is really, really hard. It took a lot. When I finally was able to forgive him, it was like the weight of the world came off my shoulders. And, I didn't feel hatred toward him. I told him at one point that I hated his something guts.
Yeah.
And he was quite shocked. And actually, I think I yelled that. But I realized I didn't hate him. I still loved him. I still love him now. I hated what he did to me. And so that was a huge realization for me, that you can be mad at the person and hate what they do, but deep down,
Well, let me ask this. So many people who have faced struggles like you have, be it the relational struggles, certainly the medical, physical struggles, they've also struggled with anger towards God. Have you ever dealt with that?
I've had people ask me that.
Yeah.
Are you angry with God? I'm like, God didn't do this to me. I can't be mad at God. I just can't.
Okay.
After what Jesus went through, I am not going to complain about my pain. Even though I am in pain, I hadn't mentioned that before, but pain is all the time. But the agony that Jesus went through for me, I'm not going to complain.
You have MS, and it's degenerative. I mean, this is going to claim your life and your remaining health and comfort before that. And I pray that there's a miracle of God, and I pray that there's what I would call medical breakthrough that's absolutely pivoting. But short of that, this is going to claim you, and yet you still continue to have this abiding joy and hope, even though you know where this disease is going to take you.
But I know where I'm going once it takes me. I mean, I know that.
Just talk to me about that. Talk to me about your hope, your faith.
My hope, I know that I will be in no more pain. I hope that, I'll be with loved ones that have gone on before, loved ones that I haven't met, or loved ones like I haven't mentioned this before. I lost 5 babies. Will I meet them in heaven? And see what they, I don't know. I don't know how that works, but I think that would be really cool. I never met my grandfather, who sounded like a remarkable man. He was in the last horse cavalry unit in the United States in the First World War, and he sounded like a really cool guy. And his father was a Lutheran minister. I don't know. It's just, I've always felt God's presence.
Another aspect that I'd just like to explore a little is, my suspicion is that most people who attend Fellowship of Faith don't realize that you're one of our elders, and that within that, what that means is you are this prayer warrior, that when people fill out those prayer requests on cards and drop them in, you're one of these key players who are praying for people. I mean, you said recently you had 31 people you were praying for in a week. And if anyone knows you, it's like we get the follow-up email from you that's a novella. And that you're doing this with one finger on your left hand because of your tremors and the sleep and the medication issues and everything else. I don't know what the question is in this, but it's always struck me as so amazing that for someone who could very easily say, your identity and purpose has been stripped away by your disease.
It has in a way, but.
Tell me about the but.
Well, okay, the but is there are very few things I can do anymore. I can't cook, but the most rudimentary of meals, I can throw a lean cuisine in my microwave.
Yeah.
Me and a knife are dangerous, but I can cut up cucumbers. It's hard to switch hands, like scraping a cucumber with my left hand because it's not used to that, but doing it with the right hand, I'm going to take off
Well, you even
skin.
told me you lacerated yourself all over the place trying to.
I burned myself and cut myself, but praying is one thing I can still do. And I've always believed in the power of prayer. God doesn't always He answers prayers, but He doesn't always answer them in the way we want.
Give you what you want, right? Right.
Because if He answered prayers, my husband and I would still be together. I was on my knees begging God, please, 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 please. But prayer. I can watch TV, and I do. But I can, when I can't sleep, I find myself laying in bed praying for people. Even if I prayed for them right when I went to bed, I'll just lay there and have a conversation with God. And
it's incredible to me how when everything else begins to get stripped away, in this powerful way you have impacted and blessed so many people, some who realize it firsthand and many who don't and never will until
That's okay.
we hit eternity.
Yeah, well, we're not keeping score. It's just something I can do for people, and it's a way I can serve. Okay, I'm an elder, but I can't do communion. I'd be flipping the wafers out of the tray, and it would be bad. And so I'm making light of it, but it is the one thing I can do. It just makes me feel good to know that I am doing something for other people that matters. And that's it. It's so easy to pray for somebody, and so hard, But it takes, the more you do it, the easier it gets.
You have this incredible faith story, this incredible faith journey of forgiveness, of inner strength, of dependency on God despite all the afflictions and struggles that life often has to throw. Final wisdom or final words that you'd like to share for those of us who maybe are not quite where you are on your faith journey?
Well, I think it's important to get into the Word. I think it's important to do either devotionals, personal devotions, or get in with a group. I know every Lent I do devotional books, as we make our way to the cross and then resurrection. And for me, just the encouragement that I've had from FOF and the really stellar Bible classes that we've had, either Sunday mornings or the special Saturday classes, where you learn more stuff. And I say get a good Bible, like a good self-study Bible, where if you don't understand what you've read, you can read.
Reference.
Yeah, and you find out more about the history, and it just makes it come alive. At least it did for me.
Yeah.
And so, and you encouraged me to get multiple multiple Bibles, like different languages. Now I can do that on Bible Gateway now, but
Of course, yeah.
I liked having the paper ones, and many times when we would do those faith challenges, and I'd be working through my worksheets, I'd have 3 or 4 Bibles out on my desk, comparing stuff because I have time. And I was always a nerd, and I loved school. And when I got diagnosed with MS, I was working my way to become a nurse. And I had to give up the dreams of that because nobody would want me to draw blood with this hand.
Yeah, right. No IVs
it would not
coming
be
that
good.
way.
Plus, I wouldn't be able to lift patients or transfer patients.
Again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I mean, just things that I'm hearing, and if you could just either confirm it or redirect it, is daily connection with God. I'm hearing the sense of dependency on Him despite where life's paths take you. I'm hearing a sense of looking at the good of what He's doing in life and the blessing rather than fixating on the bad and the struggle and the things to become bitter or dejected or depressed about.
You've said it way better. Yeah,
No,
that
no,
was
no,
good.
I'm just taking your words
it's very
and-
true. I mean,
I'm
all
hearing
those things.
ingesting it, getting His voice inside your voice, so it's constantly coming through. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the connection to a community, even if you're homebound, as you are. This connection to others that God always intended the community or the body of believers to be.
And I believe that 100%.
Right.
It's just, it's a wonderful thing to be a Christian, and I can't imagine not having God in my life. If God were not in my life and I was going through this, I'd have probably killed myself. When my husband left me, I was very close to doing that. And, a lot of people with MS do end up killing themselves. My understanding is, like Dr. Gavorkian, a lot of his patients that he assisted suicide had MS. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what somebody told me.
But the fact is that you didn't take that path, aren't considering that path, and found hope in life despite pain and suffering and struggle.
Yeah, you can ignore pain, after a while. There's sometimes okay, but you kind of turn it off.
Well, Amy, it's incredible. And again, just the insight, the wisdom, the grace, the work of God in your life, it shines through. You are truly, I think, what Jesus describes as, the light on the hill, the salt of the earth,
Yeah, I know where that's from.
Yeah, you do. You
Yeah, I
memorized
know.
it, right? But
do.
it's true.
Well, thank you.
No, thank you.
And no, a lot of it is you have pushed me to do a lot of it, or encouraged me. You don't push people to do the memory work, but boy, it's a good thing.
Well, I'm glad to
and
hear.
the faith
No, I'm glad to
challenges,
hear.
I think it makes a difference. And I think if people want that, want a closer connection with God, then they have to put in some work.
Well, to quote another one, if you hunger and thirst for righteousness, you seek out food and water.
That's exactly right. And He is the best food and water.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
for just sharing and giving your story, and just some words of encouragement and hope to all of us. I can't tell you how much we appreciate you and the prayers that come up from you that we know we continue to bask in.
Thank you.
And get surrounded. Thank you.
Thank you.